Hello and welcome to our premium retail stream panel discussion, Buying to Sell, the Fundamentals of Stocking Brands. Now, I'm going to state the obvious here, but there is no doubt that there are more beauty brands today than ever before. And while for consumers that choice is fantastic in terms of experimenting with products and finding brands that understand their values and needs, it does mean that shelf space is increasingly more and more crowded. But there also are more ways than ever for consumers to discover their next favourite product, from D2C to marketplace platforms to legacy retailers and niche websites. So how do you stand out to retail buyers? How do you get your new brand noticed as hundreds of other entrepreneurs are also hunting for that coveted top spot? So to help us understand the amazingly innovative yet extremely competitive world of beauty retail, we have a fantastic panel today. So I'd urge everyone watching to pop your questions through on the chat box as we'll be taking them as they're coming through. So thank you very much for sending them in. So now our speakers for today. We have Helen Riley. She is the Luxury and Lifestyle Manager at eBay and is responsible for the acquisition and growth of brands and retailers on the platform. Helen brings with her over 15 years of experience across global fashion, beauty, retail and e-commerce, and including she's had buying and merchandising roles at ASOS and Arcadia Group. And Samantha Friedman, she is an award-winning beauty journalist and the CEO and co-founder of Curate Beauty, Europe's first wholesale marketplace designed for indie grooming and wellness brands. And Curate Beauty has recently collaborated with Frasers Group to develop an edit of indie and small beauty brands for the company's new West Midlands location. It's very exciting. Stacia Prince, she is the International Buying Director for the leading beauty e-com retailer Cult Beauty and brings with her 28 years of beauty buying experience. And Winnie Awa, she is the founder and CEO of Antidote Street, the hyper-personalized hair care platform for afro, curly and multi-textured hair. She's also the founder of an innovative new service called Cara, a global digital platform that offers the most bespoke service for those with afro and textured hair. And lastly, but certainly not least, we welcome back Wiz Selvi, previously the head buyer for beauty at Selfridges and head of buying for Fabled by Marie Claire. Oh my God, I'm sorry. And Wiz is the founder of Wiz & Co, a strategy agency specializing in retail and brand building. Thank you very much for joining me today. It's exciting stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
So to get the ball rolling, obviously, we all know that retail isn't dead, despite what some headlines say. In fact, it's one of the most innovative space right now. So I'm keen to hear from you to introduce us. What are the most interesting areas in beauty retail right now? Helen, shall we start with you?
I think what's probably most interesting to me right now, obviously I work at a pure play marketplace and my work experience has been there before, so I love all things online, is how much social media is changing the industry, and especially over the last year where we've all been contained in our little boxes like I am today talking to you, how much you can go on to your YouTubes and Instagrams and look for tutorials, buy through those platforms, browse on the e-commerce sites. I think all this kind of thing is really exciting. I love the way that it's really disruptive as well. So we all know how retail is changing from the big bricks and mortars, the giants that have had not monopolies, but nearing that kind of thing over the last years. And now how technology has really changed that people can really come in and disrupt. We've got some great examples here on the panel now doing really amazing new things that went around a few years ago.
Winnie, what about you? What's some of the most interesting areas in beauty retail right now?
Of course. So my background is looking at textured hair in its amazing breadth and beauty. And for me, honestly, that is one of the most exciting areas because it's an area that, the consumers have been long starved for such a long time. So many people growing up they can't find their products when they go. And if, in fact, like the typical example you hear is if you're going on holiday, you need to almost carry a truck with you because you just don't know what you're going to find abroad. And you certainly don't know what you're going to find, at home either. So I think that it's such an exciting space. When I think about the curve of innovation in this area, I really think that we're very much in the beginning stages of that kind of like growth trajectory. And certainly on the services side as well. I have to say, the other platform that I launched, Cara, it's exciting to see tons of brands that are starting to think about across other verticals that are looking at, the sorts of things that people have done in nutrition or things that people have done in other categories such as fashion, and bringing that to the beauty world, because I think, as you have that growth curve of really exciting products being launched, particularly for the multicultural audience, personalization becomes completely inevitable. And that's why you have services such as Cara, and also in the skincare space, such as Renewed or Leone, etc.
Absolutely. And Sam, you offer an amazing innovative platform with Curate Beauty. So what do you find in particular interesting in retail right now?
I think the element of how tech and beauty and retail have all combined is really interesting, and a space that's definitely kind of one to watch. I mean, for us, I found a study that said 80% of B2B buyers now expect a more convenient digital purchasing experience that is similar to B2C. And to be honest, when I kind of moved over from journalist to start to Curate Beauty, I couldn't believe that buying was taking place how it was. It was seemed so antiquated, so old school. There was spreadsheets going back and forth and so much room for error. And so really what we wanted to create with Curate Beauty was just one really seamless platform for small and big brands to be able to discover, but also buy all in one place across multiple brands. And I think the tech has really exploded this year, and not only for us being kind of at the forefront with B2B, but with direct-to-consumer brands really getting innovative with their tech and creating incredible AI tech to enable their customers to find the right products for them. We're also working with some machine intelligence algorithms to kind of make the matchmaking process much more automated. So I think, yeah, it's exciting how tech has played a big part, especially over the last 12 months.
Absolutely. And Stacey, I obviously like Cult Beauty is such a pioneer in the pure play beauty space. What are you finding innovative right now? I saw you nod along with what Sam was saying about some antiquated methods.
Well, first of all, it's always just so joyous to follow these esteemed people, because I can just say, oh, a bit of everything that they've said, but actually it's the truth. And I think the day that I stopped being excited about beauty retailing was the day that I retire, which some may think is long overdue. Honestly, elements from each. I think the fact that the industry is becoming more transparent, which is something Cult Beauty has wanted to be for a very, very long time. The fact that we are much more conscious and conscientious about what we're doing, with so much focus on sustainability. It's just so long overdue, and brands aren't thinking about it. It's to their shame. I think the intelligence aspect is just, it's so exciting, and so much of it is so beyond my mental capability. But and the personalization aspect, every individual is looking for something that is beauty is an emotional purchase, and so I think that people don't want to be spoken to generically. We've partnered with a couple of external platforms, one being Provenance, which is a blockchain platform that's enabling us to really highlight proof points that are important to us, like sustainability, like female founded, all the tick boxes, like a program called Match Me, which is allowing people to really buy complexion online with very little error from margin error. So all of those things are just important, just treating the customer with respect and intelligently.
Absolutely. And Wiz, what do you think? What's been particularly stand out for you recently?
I just think it's really exciting, I suppose, redistribution of retailers. There's been a few retailers that have been clinging on for a long time, but actually, yeah, I think they're clearing the way for, I suppose, a new emergence of physical and digital retailers as well. I mean, obviously, I grew up at Selfridges, it feels like, who's kind of, I think, the leaders in experiential retail. But actually, if you are going to have a physical experience, I think it's really important to have great customer service, but also finding something new and exciting as well. And we all know that beauty is kind of so tactile and people want to try it and experience it as well. But then also the digital players, obviously the explosion in the last 12 months of Cult Beauty, Feel Unique really expanding with their marketplace, and kind of the Hut Group floating as well as I think Next launching beauty as well, which kind of I helped launch a couple of years ago. So it's all this kind of this shuffle that's really exciting, and then the customers being able to shop where they want, because ultimately it's the customers that I suppose have created this demand. Customers are savvy; they know what they want. They can do something at a click of a button, or they will shop where they want to based on the experience they have. What I'm also really excited about is things are becoming less London-centric. A lot more people are shopping locally, which is exciting, and I think this is a great opportunity for brands. And I think as we see more pop-ups, we've seen some in the last couple of weeks on Oxford Street with kind of Enterprise Nation and Souk, who are actually providing a platform for independent brands. And what I really hope to see is this is going to start road-showing around the whole of the country, so everyone gets a kind of a bit of the action.
Absolutely, and I think that's where virtual consultations have been great in helping to people get outside of London and get to know the brands in the comfort of their own home. As you can imagine, we've spoken a lot about the pandemic for the past week, both in terms of trends, short and long term. But from your perspective, how has the pandemic influenced your relationship with brands and your strategies? Winnie, can I get started with you on that?
Of course. So I guess there's always two lenses with which I'm offering a view. One is through the lens of Antidote Street, which is e-com platform for textured hair. And then the other is Cara, which is a one-to-one digital coaching platform that is offering tailored routines and personalized product recommendations. And I would say that if I think about the pandemic actually accelerated certain behaviors for customers. The idea that you could, via video or via text or via WhatsApp, get beauty advice or hair care advice, that completely accelerated that behavior. Whereas before, people might not necessarily be used to that, but actually over the course of the last 12 to 18 months, where we've kind of typically I would imagine this conversation would be happening live in person, but we're doing it via Zoom. And I think people are a lot more comfortable about that. And I think to a certain extent, that's completely impacted the way we've shaped the new proposition with Cara, in it being a borderless digital platform that enables customers from all over the world to get access to hair coaching experts. And from a perspective of Antidote Street, I wouldn't say that the pandemic has changed that. I think we've remained and retained, stayed very, very close to our principles, which is about aggregating the best product for textured hair, testing those, trying to understand, okay, first things first, what sorts of regulations have these gone through? Are there any toxins in these products? What sorts of sustainability credentials do they have? We've really stayed true to that, in line with what our customers are actually asking us. So I wouldn't say there's been much of an impact from that perspective.
Cool. How about you, Stacey, at Cult Beauty? Has the pandemic impacted your strategy at all?
Not our strategy as such. I think it taught us that we have to be even more nimble. We've always prided ourselves on, moving quickly and reacting even faster. But yeah, I think just nimble and obviously a shock like that is one that, none of us could have predicted it. And, we've had shocks throughout the 13 years we've been in existence, and we've had to adapt, but none quite as we did last year. So I think just really being nimble. And I suppose what it reinforced is our core pillars anyway, which is working very collaboratively with our brands, became even more important. You know, some struggled more than others, guiding our brands. You know, for some, especially those fairly new to market, this came as horrible for the world it was, but you know, it really stopped them in their tracks. You know, there were some brands that we'd literally just brought to market a few months before, and so it was just that extra level of empathy and courage. And yeah, I mean, you know, the seismic shift in categories was just amazing, and so we had to react accordingly. And I think still operating with a startup mentality, despite the fact that there's a lot of us now and there's a lot, the risks are higher, really served us well. You know, we've always worked as a really cohesive group, you know, buying, merchandising, marketing, and so I just think we were in a good place to be able to deal with it.
Wow. And Helen, how about at eBay? How has the pandemic impacted things there?
Yeah, it's a really interesting place to be, eBay, when there's trends coming along, because we have all manner of things, such a big platform, the second biggest e-commerce site in the UK, so we see everything. In terms of brands and how they were reacting, it was quite polarised to begin with last March. So on the one hand, there were some retailers or brands that were all hands on deck for business as usual, and they didn't have time to look at new revenue streams or their second revenue stream and things like that with as much attention as they had before. And then on the other side, of course, we had nimble brands and retailers that needed to pivot very quickly to online. So we tried as much as possible, of course, to support them. We had to come up with a lot of new working strategies to sort of fill in the gaps of things that they maybe didn't have in place quite quickly to get them online. So that was a real learning and strong point of ours, I think, to take advantage of that and also help them come online. And not just for big brands and retailers, but also we have a huge SMB network, which is one of our real plus points, I think, in the beauty world. So many different initiatives to support businesses of all sizes. And from the customer point of view, it's really interesting to see all the search terms come in week to week, changing. And we had all the trends that you would expect. So people trying to do their salon services at home where they weren't able to get their suntan lotion, and fake tan didn't fare so well last year. But we were still selling a pair of false eyelashes every 20 seconds. And I have no idea what people were doing with those. So interesting stuff.
Maybe they're practicing how to put them on before.
I think, yeah, I mean, that's what we think.
Sorry, just to say, Helen, that's so interesting you say that, because we had some really unexpected spikes where we didn't. So, you know, we saw sales of lip products obviously went, you know, way down because people were mainly covered from the nose down, and yet complexion, and I think it's because and so people were still worried, weren't they, about how they looked and making themselves feel good. But it was just that weird where you suddenly look and think, what are they, like you say, what are you doing with a false eyelash?
And
I still want long eyelashes.
That's it. And I think there's definitely been a bit of dressing up for Zoom, hasn't there? And we think we've had quite a lot of conversion from, you know, at home makeup tutorials and things like that, people doing it socially. So yeah, really interesting year, just trying to unpick which parts of the trends people are going to stick with as we come out of the pandemic, which parts they can't wait to leave behind. Yeah.
And Sam, obviously you work with a lot of small and indie brands as well. So what have you noticed in the past year as the pandemic happened?
Well, we launched Curate Beauty in February, and then obviously the pandemic came in March. So for us, it's been a really interesting time because we kind of don't know what could have been. And I guess it's very similar to Stacia. What we had to do was kind of react and be as nimble as possible, but also having a personal approach. I think as a new business too, having that kind of one-to-one contact with our retailers, making them know that kind of we were there to support them, and as well as with our brands, we were there to take them through kind of the kind of transitions and changes that were definitely going to be impacting their businesses. And sadly, some businesses that we work with didn't make it through, and it was just too tough a time with Brexit on top of it. But so many of them have used this as such an amazing opportunity, and it's been so innovative, I think, to see what has come out of this, and people putting together amazing charitable give backs, or just being able to kind of adapt to the times with the hand sanitizer and bring out hand sanitizers in like record time. So yeah, being definitely nimble and just having that personal approach to our customers. And I think what we've seen has been the biggest sales for us has been skincare, which I think more people have had time to do at home and get involved with tools and gadgets and things, but also nails, which it doesn't really come as much of a surprise, but being at home and wanting to be able to kind of paint your own nails and not be at the salon again. Yeah.
I think we've lost Winnie, so hopefully she can come back. I think probably some technical difficulty, but hopefully she can join us back soon. So sorry, Wiz, what do you think about the pandemic? I know we spoke a bit about it earlier and from your talk earlier, but yeah, what do you think of the pandemic and how it's impacted the past year?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of worked with a cross section of brands, from kind of global retailers and global brands, but also with a lot of independent brand founders as well. And there's just been a lot of uncertainty in the last 12 months. And I've actually kind of pivoted my business a bit. I've created online programs to help more indie brand founders scale, to not only pitch to buyers, but also to be able to build their business so they can prove the value to not only customers, but to buyers as well. But there has been so much uncertainty, and I've been doing a lot of online content and masterclasses, as well as trend reports on what the outlook's going to look like as well, because certainly I suppose, lots of brands wanting to pitch to retailers, but it's a real kind of, I suppose, step of insecurity for them, that sometimes they'll approach and they won't hear back, or they don't take that step forward. So actually kind of helping them navigate through that journey, because actually launching with a big retailer can really change their business as well. So yeah, I suppose it's been about hand-holding some of those people, educating them, keep banging on that retail is not dead. I think a lot of people were waiting actually to see, I'll just wait and see what's going to happen. But actually all of these businesses are pedaling really quite quickly in the background. People have been saying to me, well, buyers aren't taking on any new brands. I'm like, oh yes, they are. Retailers are having to work quicker and faster than ever to create a point of difference. So people go back into stores. So people shop on their websites, because there's so many more kind of retailers and brands popping up there. So yeah, things are just moving quickly, and people are having to work harder than ever. And we're just going to see some explosion of new businesses that come out of this as well, which is super exciting.
Absolutely, no, I think so too. We've got some questions coming in, which is great, and I will send them over to you. Well, I'll ask them now. We've got one from Julia, so thanks, Julia. And she's asked, when trying to find the right retailer, is it better to opt for somewhere that has good footfall/visibility, or somewhere that best aligns with your positioning and or values? So I guess, Wiz, shall we start off with you as how you work with brands and answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with the customer. So who is your customer? I think really understanding them is absolutely crucial to this. And then where are they shopping? I think I see lots of brands and they forget about the customer. And certainly when I was at Selfridges, I'd have lots of brands that would pitch and be like, I want to be in Selfridges. But that was almost about the ego of the brand founder. And actually that brand would have done amazingly in Boots or in John Lewis, but it wasn't quite right for Selfridges. I've had some quite famous people that were pitching to me at Selfridges, and we were like, this just isn't right, this isn't your customer, isn't here. So yeah, it's about working out where your customers are going to shop, and then proving your value to the buyer as well. So there's I suppose different variables when you're launching with retailers. One is kind of somewhere like Cult Beauty or Selfridges, it's that global positioning, not only to customers, but then also to other buyers globally, because they will be looking to these key leaders to see what they're launching and follow them as well. But always it's got to be about your values, because at the end of the day, that's your customers' values. So making sure you're aligning to those is really important.
Absolutely. Stacey, is there anything you'd like to add on to that?
Yeah, I think be really true to yourself about your brand. And also, if you have a target retailer, just do real research into the type of brands they offer and get to know, speak to other people in the industry about their experience, but really get to know the retailer. I mean, to Wiz's point, and I don't like to be dismissive or rude about any brands, but you know, if somebody from a reality show with a self-tan or a stick-on now comes to Cult Beauty and tells me they're perfect for me, they're not, and it hurts me to have to say to them, you're not. So be true to yourself, really get to know the retailer that you want, and look at who you would be on a virtual shelf with. You know, does that fit right? And know your brand. That's the most important thing. When I say know your brand, know what your true difference is, if there are any, because what a buyer does not like is you coming to them and saying, I'm the only person using this ingredient, this delivery method, and you're not. So when I say know your brand, I'm really not saying it with any air of being patronising. I just mean truly, truly know your brand and everything about it.
Absolutely. Winnie, I wasn't sure, because I know there was a bit of technical difficulty there. We just received a question that was about finding the right retailer and the best with your values. Is there something you'd like to add to that?
Absolutely. I would actually echo what you said, Stacia, around, you know, knowing your brand, like knowing exactly what it is, you know, what your USP is, what your unique selling point is, and leading with that. I think often we receive pitches that end up sounding very, very similar. And then my question is typically, you know, what makes this different, or what is that hero ingredient that you're utilizing that is going to make a difference? And the other thing I really like to hear about is testing. How have you gone about testing your product? How have you gone about trying to understand how it works across multiple textures? Any data points around that, I kind of get really, really excited about, because it's a way of validating or proving that you actually know who your customer is. And that also helps us think about how we position you on the platform, so that you're not just another bum on the shelf, as it were.
Helen, would you like to add something? Is how to know if eBay is right for them?
Yeah, I just agree with everything that everybody's already said. So it's all about the customer and where is your customer. So, I mean, it's fantastic to be on a great big website with loads of customers, but if they're not the right customer for you, or you can't get cut through against the adjacencies there, then you've perhaps not chosen the right strategy. So absolutely know who your customer is, know who your brand is, and then figure out where are they shopping, who you might want to sit next to at these retailers.
And Sam, you're in it with Curate. It's a unique situation. So in terms of the marketplace you've developed, what would you advise to the brands that you work with there?
I mean, it's a lot of echoing what everyone else said. It is very interesting what kind of brands think that the right retailers are right for them, but they haven't thought about who the audience is. And like, you can go to the best location and be in front of thousands of people with great footfall, or be on a website that is getting incredible traction from great customers. But if they're not right for you, then you're kind of at a loss. So yeah, really do your homework and make sure that it is kind of the right fit for you. And I think when you're telling the buyer, tell them why you think it's the right fit, but think of something that's unique. Don't just say because you're organic, natural, and a female founder, because a lot of other people are saying the same thing. So what is really going to make you stand out and be memorable and be unique to that buyer?
Absolutely. And I think as a journalist as well, you know, that also applies to media and engaging media as well. So we've got another question coming through. So also, do you think we're going to see more hyper niche retailer propositions? Obviously, past year, we've seen quite a number launch. I remember one recent example selling only heritage Italian brands to a US audience. Will we see more like these? So yes, we've seen more niche focused retailers emerge. Obviously, Winnie, you've launched as a niche retailer, or you're focusing on hair care. So what do you think about that movement in the retail space?
I suppose the first things first is I actually don't think about it as niche. I think that perhaps, you know, we've been socialized to think that it's niche, and perhaps that's why there hasn't been so many offerings, or it's been underdeveloped, particularly for a multicultural audience. But that market indeed is a niche when you think about the proportion of the world that are actually multicultural. So I tend to think about them as potentially pockets of underserved markets, pockets of underserved spaces that have been historically ignored. That's the way I look at it. And are we going to see more? Absolutely, because I think as well as the consumer becoming more savvy, they're also becoming very vocal about the areas in their life where they don't feel catered for. So we're probably going to see more and more of that. You know, just recently, we've seen brands, you know, based on the Latin American heritage, you know, there are rituals there that maybe none of us know anything about, and there are people who are creating exciting products in that space, and it's really cool to see.
Absolutely. So it's almost like we should replace the word niche with targeted, really.
Yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
Has anyone else got anything they'd like to add on that discussion about niche retailers? Wiz, yep, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for any new retailers to survive, they absolutely have to have a point of difference. I've spoken to 2 independent retailers this week, and I'm not seeing people with enough of a point of difference. I mean, cult beauty is cult beauty. You cannot replicate that. They have been going for so many years and they're so good at it. And you're not going to compete with someone like Feel Unique and the Hut Group either. You have to have, a retailer has to have its own tone of voice and its own point of difference. It can't just be an aggregator of brands, particularly as the cost of digital marketing is so expensive as well. It takes a long time to build that customer base as well. And a lot of these independent retailers aren't profitable for many, many years because it takes so long to build. So you have to, as much as a brand has to have a unique selling point, it's not enough to be female founded, vegan, sustainable brand. It's got to have that, a retailer has to have that point of view as well, and that emotional connection with the customer to get them coming back and not just shopping based on discounts or gift with purchase.
Absolutely. Is anyone else that'd like to add anything?
I think it was am I talking over someone? A really interesting one, because for us, we see a whole host of different kinds of retailers come to us, and these kind of underserved niche spaces have been the ones that are, I think, are getting the most attention, and that we've now got retailers just focusing on sleep products, and we've got retailers just focusing on sexual wellness. And I think that it's also bringing together like a lifestyle and people shopping as a lifestyle. So you're not just shopping for maybe makeup and skincare, but you also maybe want to shop for home and lifestyle products, and almost shopping by what your lifestyle focus is, whether you want to sleep more and sleep is your biggest, like, that's what you have to do and need, and that's your like true focus because you just can't get to sleep. That's how people are changing up the retail space, and I think that's really interesting, and also will be an areas that can show the most kind of innovation within one space, and with the so much choice being out there. I think that that's going to be key and help customers navigate all the choice and decision making.
Absolutely. Helen?
Yeah, I was just going to say, broadly speaking, we're in such a unique time at the moment, aren't we? You know, a silly example maybe, but last year was the worst time to own a restaurant with all these overheads and suppliers and things, but could have been the best time to open up the takeaway that you've always wanted to do. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see who manages to set up their business from this period, and then also take advantage of things like marketplace and social media and get some real cut through. So we could see some super interesting niche brands and retailers come through that might not have had that opportunity in the same way.
Absolutely. I've got another question coming through. So thank you, Victoria. And she's asked, what trade marketing tools / PR support from the brand do you expect or look for when exploring partnerships with new brands? What are the best practices and no-nos? Stacia, would you like to take that one?
I mean, I think we take it on a case-by-case basis. It really depends on the size of the brand. We're very empathetic to new brands that have invested all of their money in the product. And, it's a common tale for brands to come to us and say, we just don't have the resources to secure a PR agency, or I mean, we do everything in-house, and we work as hard as we can to support brands. So we have in-house PR, affiliate teams, social teams. So we effectively do a lot of the work for them. I think, and I'm speaking purely, you know, as an e-commerce site, it's just really important that you invest money in your assets and your content, and you know, the things that a retailer is going to have to use from you. But other than that, you know, you can get your product into the hand of one influencer and find that's all the PR you need to go to market. It's so difficult to guide people. I think we have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, but I think a good retailer, a supportive retailer, will always be very empathetic to limited resources, and that your funds have gone into things that are slightly more important, like your formulations.
Absolutely. Wiz, when you're with your background at Selfridges and things like that, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, launching with some of these huge retailers can be very expensive and can often be a loss-making exercise based on some of the investment you need with marketing. But actually then it's, I think it's when you've got small volumes at the beginning, it can be a real challenge. But actually, as you get economy of scale, then you start to, I suppose, reap the rewards, and also then the brand awareness that you get from that. And it really just does vary by different retailer, and knowing how different retailers work. It's more expensive to work with some than others, and sometimes there's rate cards with retailers, sometimes there's not, sometimes there's different types of marketing expectations. And I think the biggest opportunity for any beauty brand is sampling. I hear a lot of people that say, wow, it's so expensive to sample, samples are so expensive. And it's like, yes, but you can get your brand into hands of thousands of beauty addicts that love these samples and love these beauty boxes. So I think if you're going to do anything, it's making sure that you have some great samples to participate in some of these boxes or sampling mechanisms that a lot of retailers have.
And Sam, how about you when you're working with brands? Do you expect them to have a strong PR support already?
I think it does vary case by case with different brands. But as Stacey said, kind of having good assets, video content, incredible photography, are things that you don't need to spend so much money on, but having them on standby is something that is so crucial for retailers. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's something that in-house we're now bringing in, so we're going to have a content creation team helping brands, but also for retailers, create the best content, because I think that when you're buying things so much digitally now, you want to see everything about it. You almost want that in-person experience online. So you want to see not just that they've got a beautiful pack shot, but what does the texture look like? What's it like on the skin? And all of those different elements too. And I mean, I do agree with Wiz, like sampling is an amazing way to get your product out there and get it into hands. And especially with something like beauty, where it's so experiential and you want to smell it and you want to feel it and you want to get so excited about it as a consumer to get people to really try it and in their hands. Mm-hmm. That's really key. But I guess also it's the story you tell behind your brand is so key. And I guess it's similar how you're pitching to journalists as when you're pitching to buyers, is you kind of want to make that story for them. You don't just want to tell them about what your one product is or what your new launch is. You almost want to create the hype and the excitement around it to get them excited about it too, and make them want it in their stores.
Yeah, we spoke a lot earlier about in a previous talk with Wiz, importance of founder story as well. So I guess that's also a part of that. Absolutely. Winnie or Helen, would you like to add anything else onto that?
Yeah, just again, I think as it's just been said, it depends on the brand, mm-hmm. As to where you should be investing and knowing your customer. So if you're a big commercial brand, you're more likely to need to be spending big money on big platforms, for example. If you're smaller, should it be on your content, how you're getting through social media, things like that. And then also just generally in visibility, make sure that you're spending on getting your great titles and descriptions and things. So when you're online, coming through Google Shopping, because that's of course like another part to advertising, just general visibility.
Yeah. And so, as again, you imagine environmental strategy, eco-friendly, huge movements, they're very important movements right now. When you're receiving pitches from brands or looking at working with new brand partners, do you take that into consideration? Is that important? Winnie, would you like to start us on that?
100%. That's increasingly a space that I get so excited about, even beyond products or concepts that are refillable, right? There are people who are using, say, for instance, in the world of hair extensions, things that are actually degradable. And it's just really exciting to see innovations like that. So it's actually thinking for the next decade, for the next 20 years. And that's very exciting for me. So that's something that we keep an eye on.
Absolutely. Stacia, is that something you take into consideration at all?
Yes, very seriously. Yeah. I mean, we've made great moves ourselves in that field, and so it's really important to and actually our existing brands who it's not top of their agenda, we're speaking to them very seriously about it. Yeah, it should be.
Absolutely. I think it's an industry-wide thing, isn't it, at the moment? Everyone's setting great targets to achieve.
You'd like to hope so.
It's true. Is anyone else that'd like to add on that? 'Cause we've got another question come through.
I'd love to just add that kind of I agree, like you can't just launch a brand now because the formulation's good. You have to think about all the elements of it. You have to think about the packaging, the carbon footprint. We are getting now more and more retailers ask us about the packaging, the outer packaging, as well as the kind of sleeve that's around it. And they want the brands to be as transparent as possible. And I think that's really key, to share as much as you can. If you are doing something in plastic, is there a reason why it's in plastic? It might be that you have to heat the product. So I don't know, there's all different elements that are part of it. And I think that it's just key to really focus on it. But also the carbon footprint has been a big kind of element for us, especially with a lot of like British retailers that want to just stock British brands for that reason, to kind of reduce carbon emissions and stuff.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I like that. Is interesting. So we've got a question come through, and they've asked, what are the priorities among brands at the moment when it comes to partnering with your business? So I guess, Helen, have you noticed certain priorities from brands at the moment who want to work with eBay?
I think for us, it's been the big trend of pivoting to online, perhaps when they don't have that reach through their traditional outlets has been the biggest thing we've seen, and just changing their working practices to get there as soon as possible.
Absolutely. How about Wiz, at the moment with them, you're talking certain priorities for brands at the moment who want to work with certain retailers?
Yeah, their priority was always the pitch and getting the meeting, and I suppose that's the bit that they get the most confused about. And for me, I'm always advising them to make it about the retailer. Really do your research, make sure you've looked at all of their competitors, and making sure you're proving the commercial opportunity for the retailer, as well as what your point of difference is and your unique selling points as well. Because I'd certainly say, from being pitched at thousands of times myself, that the commercial opportunity or indicators are often forgotten in the pitch pack. So really make it about the retailer as well, and what you can offer them, rather than just what it's all about from your point of view.
And speaking about pitches, I was hoping if you could provide some practical advice for our brands that are here today in terms of how to get notice in your inbox. Are there certain things that they should and shouldn't do with their subject line? Should they provide you as much information as possible, or leave you not very much? Yes. So what's your ideal pitch, I guess, is probably to land in your inbox. So Stacia, what's yours?
I mean, yeah, I have so many pitches every single day, and we look at every single one because we should, and so we do. So I actually see them first, and then I forward them to my buying team if I think there's even a glimmer of interest. I think be professional. Don't be over formal, but don't be too informal. You know, you're trying to start a relationship with somebody, and so, you know, go into it like you would any relationship. Yeah, so being over familiar is super annoying. But equally, being, you know, very stilted and corporate is also something that doesn't work with us. Again, when it comes to actually looking at the pitch, as we said earlier, you know, that's very often people's priorities, and it should be. Just make sure you've got all the facts that are very, very easily digestible. You know, you could be sending your pitch, it could be one of 50 that lands in our inboxes on a daily basis. So how you stand out is just by making it impactful. I suppose visually quite exciting. You know, if you haven't accompanied it with product, then that's fine. But again, it comes down to being professional and knowing your stuff. You know, I mean, really, really, I can't stress enough, know your brand. And I don't really want to look at market data on page 1. That can be down page 15. You know, just you're selling your brand. Make sure it's just appealing.
Absolutely. Winnie, how about you?
I think for me, it's really down to, I love to see the excitement. I know obviously you can't, there's little that you can tell via email, but I like to get a sense of how excited the founder is about what it is that they've created, and also why that thing rocks. I think that for me gets me like super hyper, because I'm like, well, let's have a conversation, because you clearly sound like you've created something that is absolutely unique in this space. I would say providing information around, it would be great to see information around the branding, links to social media sites, links to, as I mentioned earlier, tests that have been done, because I think that that's incredibly important, both understanding that the product itself is toxin free, and also understanding the myriad of textures that the product works.
Absolutely. Wiz, what's your top tips when it comes to emailing?
Well, I've got so many. I've got a 2-hour training on my website about this one if you really want to go into depth, and a whole program about it. Key things: never email on Monday. Buyers are super busy. Make it really succinct. Imagine somebody's reading this in less than 30 seconds. Buyers are super busy. They have hundreds of emails. You heard Stasia, she's reviewing at least 50 in a row. So not too much information, and making sure it's really clear, your clear point of difference to other brands in the market and other brands that they stock. So make sure you really do that research. You can find out a lot about researching. And give some indicators of kind of why your brand has customer demand, because buyers want to launch a brand that they know is going to fly off the shelves physically or virtually. So you want to prove that you've got customer demand. So when they launch it, they know that they're going to make some money.
Absolutely. Helen or Sam, do you have any tips when it comes to emailing and working with retailers?
Yeah, just buyers do get so many emails, it's ridiculous. So make it really clear in the first sentence what it is that you are saying to them, and quickly back it up with something that's going to make them interested. I think anything that's too complicated or too much is going to go to the bottom of the pile.
For us, because we just work with independent brands, we always look for a strong story. But as the guy said, like, make it interesting, make yourself stand out. And get organized. The amount of people that don't have assets together or send them through in emails and block your emails is so annoying. So if you have like a Dropbox or something that's organized with like an area for before and afters, or stats and data or pictures, that literally means a lot. So I think, being organized really shows and comes across when you're coordinating with buyers and different retailers.
Absolutely. So we've got a question that's come through. Is there an opportunity for more collaboration / pop-ups with specialist beauty e-commerce in bricks and mortar chains? Who'd like to have a go at that one?
We've missed doing pop-ups terribly. I mean, we have done 2. And they have been with 2 of our brands, one when they launched into the UK market, and another one to celebrate their anniversary in the UK market. And They were both incredibly experiential, brilliantly attended. And we had a really exciting plan for last year to do so many more. Yeah, I think these, as we said earlier, that experiential side is what customers are really, really wanting. And we've missed doing it terribly. I mean, it overtook our lives for a period of time every time we did one, but they were such fun and so rewarding. So I think, look, there's plenty of empty retail units out there. Something exciting's got to happen with them.
Absolutely. Is it Glow Recipe? Was that what? Yes, it looked beautiful.
We did. Oh, the Glow Recipe one was amazing. It was sort of like fairground come store. I mean, it had elements of everything in it, and it was so well received. And lent itself beautifully to a pop-up store. And then when we launched Milk Makeup into the UK, we did that via a pop-up, which was equally exciting and vibrant, and it was wonderful. So we hope that now the world is somewhat getting back to normal, and we'll have many more opportunities. Yeah,
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Winnie, would you consider doing a pop-up?
100%, both in collaboration and outside of a collab. Similarly, actually, we had done this mobile salon, which is sort of like the future of hair, and we basically like converted an Airstream van and popped up in lots of different parts of London. And it was such a hit. People were like, hey, London's not the only place that exists. Are you going to bring it, to our part of town? And we're planning to do that, but obviously the pandemic happened. So I think that there is such a fantastic, I think online is absolutely, where the future is. I think we're all 100% accustomed to it, but there's also something to be said for human interaction in any shape that takes. And I think pop-ups are such a fun way, especially when you do something different, that is not just the come to the shop. Like, there's something different that people can get out of it, and they can also meet and interact with other people like them. That's really what community means. It's kind of like bringing your community to life. I think it's incredibly exciting. So definitely more of that to come.
Absolutely. Helen, how about eBay and pop-ups? Is that something you're looking forward to?
Yeah, not necessarily pop-up shops, but certainly we do real life events and things where we can start to engage with the customer. They're really important. Like, I work for a pure play, as you all know, but I'm a huge fan of omni-channel and giving the customer the opportunity to, see stock or have different experiences when they need to. So that's the way that we build it into our business model. But yeah, can't wait to get out there and see some real people, see some real customers, talk to some other people, certainly.
I know, you can just feel everyone's itching for it now, aren't they? Just to meet people in real life.
Definitely.
So in terms of another topic we've talked about today, which we couldn't avoid, was obviously D2C. And how that's become a very strong strategy for brands now. And so I was wondering, from your perspective, how has that impacted your relationship with brands and your strategies? Helen, would you like to start with that?
D2C is an interesting one for us, because a lot of what we've been doing on beauty over the last year is enabling traditionally B2B businesses to get that business to consumer capability. So lots of the big brands, they might be used to sending 50 pallets of lipsticks to a big retailer, but they wouldn't want to ship one to me. So how can we plug that gap to figure out how they can do it? And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have a huge SMB business, which we're really proud of, and do a lot of work to enable smaller businesses who, again, might not have the digital investment to get the customers coming to their own websites. How can they get D2C through our platform?
Absolutely. Stacia, is that something you've explored with Cult Beauty?
Yeah, I mean, most brands that we work with, if not all brands that we work with, have their own D2C, and some of them are quite established before they work with us, and and others aren't. I suppose we sit side by side very nicely, and we have a global reach, and a lot of brands are very often territorial native. So, a brand in North America don't ship overseas, and equally a brand in the UK. So I think that we just coexist really nicely. And obviously, I mean, there are some brands that have, you know, a huge database, but we have an extraordinarily large database, and so I suppose there's that advantage of working with us as well. It's reaching customers that they themselves aren't reaching. But yeah, I think we coexist really well. I mean, I honestly can't think of a brand that we have that doesn't have a D2C business.
For a brand that is purely D2C and then they want to work with a retailer like yourself, is there something, what would you advise them in terms of adjusting their mentality and strategy to work with retailers?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's just not the beauty of D2C is obviously you make a lot more margin. Normally the restriction is that you haven't got access to as many customers as you have when you're working with with a retailer. So I think it's just getting that fine balance. And I think the other thing I always say is don't consider, when you've got a wholesale business, don't always give yourself first dibs on everything, because all that does is upset the wholesaler. So, brands that give themselves a month, 2 months on their D2C channels with an exclusive product before they give it, it's just not the best way of working, because all that happens is it dilutes the success that you can have with retailers. You only get one wow moment when you launch something to market, and so that's very difficult. So I think just even when you do go from a D2C model and you go to wholesale, just have respect for the retailers that you're working with. You can't just have them as an afterthought. They're an add-on, so to speak.
And Sam, how about you? What do you think about that? Because I assume with many of the indie brands that you're working with, they start off as purely D2C.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually think it's kind of made the competition within the beauty brand space much greater. And I think that brands have to have a D2C to kind of work out who their customer is and have that community before they approach retailers. And I think, as Stacey said, the retailers, like multi-brand beauty players like them, are going to give them a huge amount of reach and going to take them to a different market globally. But if they can really hone in on who their own customer is in their home country of where they're from, that's really key, and that will, I think, drive the buzz and make more retailers more excited about them once they've kind of built up their own sort of community.
Absolutely. Winnie, would you like to add anything? Or Wiz, we've got another question that's come through, but if you'd like anything else you'd like to add on to that subject?
I would just say that from our perspective, we see our brands as collaborators, and I see this as really a symbiotic relationship, whereby, for brands that actually majority of our brands, they've got their own website. It makes absolute sense. It's also your way of getting data. That's incredibly important, which you might not get access to via a retailer. But how this then evolves for us is that we have collaboration. So we partner with them in marketing events. We partner with them to tell the story of the brand, and that really helps accelerate things in a really beautiful way. So I would say it's a symbiotic relationship.
Cool. We've got a question that's come in, and they've asked, thank you very much, Victoria. They've asked, is there a minimum number of SKUs that buyers look at when launching with a new brand? Would a single hero product be interesting, or would the brand need more SKUs before launching with a retailer? Wiz, what's your advice for that?
If you can sell some serious volume of one SKU, then it would be attractive to a buyer. But you've got to think about a buyer who's got multiple different suppliers to manage. So if they don't think that they can take the volume through one SKU, it might not be worth their time to add it to the assortment. So often it's less about the number of SKUs, but it's actually about, I suppose, the customer demand for it. And whether they've got certainly if it's physical space, it's easier if it's digital, but if it's physical, do they have, I suppose, the facility for just one SKU? Do they have a multi-brand area? Do they have somewhere that's easily to merchandise this?
Absolutely. Stacey, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I mean, our mantra is curation. So we're very happy. And I couldn't agree more with Wiz. If a product stands on its own and there's a reason why you've got a one SKU brand, we're happy to look at it.
Mhm.
There's a maximum number of SKUs but a minimum, no, we're fine with minimums.
Okay, I like that. Maximum yes, minimum no. How about Sam, Helen, or Winnie? Is there anything else you'd like to add on to that?
I mean, we work with brands that have got one SKU or that have got like 30. And I do agree with the guys. It's where you're placing them and what retailers are right for them. And if one single product is just going to get lost and not be able to produce the volume and bring the excitement and tell the brand story, then maybe it is worth waiting till there are a couple more. But if it is an incredible sellout product, then absolutely it definitely has a space in the right places.
Mm-hmm. Anything else, Winnie?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when I was at ASOS, I mean, things may have changed, it was a while ago now, but we certainly looked for a range that could be beautifully merchandised and the customer could come and have that experience, etc. At eBay, it's a very different platform. Clearly, it's not as curated, and just having one product, if that's what the customer's coming to search for, can do very, very well on the platform.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Unfortunately, we have to rounding off our panel. I can't believe it's come so quickly, but I do have one question that I'd like to finish on. For forecasting, what do you think is going to happen in beauty retail post-pandemic and once things have calmed down? So Winnie, do you want to get started on that?
I think that we will continue to see such a firm trend towards tech-enabled platforms. Mm-hmm. I think that COVID has accelerated behaviors there, and I actually think that it's here to stay. So we're going to continue to see really exciting platforms that are utilizing personalization to make things even more relevant to customers, and we'll also continue to see things like VR for people who want to try things on, and certainly the community side of things, social shopping, I think is also really, really exciting.
Absolutely. Sam, what's your predictions?
I literally had social shopping was something that I was going to say, Winnie, and you stole it from me. It's that kind of experiential. I think, that's the kind of physical side of it and having the experience, but also like thinking about it socially. Like people may not go into shops on their own. I mean, I'm sure they will, but if you could go with a friend and experience something together, then that's so much more exciting and a reason to go somewhere. And again, kind of what Winnie said, but like the digital hybrid into retail, I think is so exciting. There's a really cool platform called Hero, which sort of brings to life online experiences with like one-to-one virtual shopping and things like that. I think will change the game and how we're buying, and as consumers, but also for retailers to make it more exciting and more innovative than ever before. And yes, the pandemic has brought so much uncertainty, but it also has brought a huge amount of opportunity, which I think is so exciting.
Helen, what's your predictions?
Yeah, sustainability for sure is just going to get bigger and bigger as people continue to be more conscious about what's going on in the world. And then I think category-wise, I think we're going to see a mixture of things sticking and coming back and accelerating from the pandemic. So skincare, which has done phenomenally well over the last year, people are going to stick with those regimes, I would predict. Makeup, I thought everybody would be bursting out of their homes into pub gardens covered in lipstick. That trend hasn't happened as quickly as I thought, but is that going to happen later in the summer when we're all back in high heels and glitzy dresses? I don't know. Interesting to see.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. See when those false eyelashes will come out of the cupboards.
Oh yeah, imagine how many we'll be selling now.
Stacia, what's your forecast?
I hope for brightness and joy and light, and I think people are craving that. I think the days of people being satisfied just with a transactional purchase are over. I think people want they want drama and theatre, and they want an experience. And I think, look, there's a lot of people whose finances are still very uncertain. People are still very scared of the future. So people are making a much more considered purchase. So I think the more we can educate customers to make the right, decision for themselves. Speaking to them on a personalised level, I think is also really important, feeling like they're being spoken to, they're being listened to. But I do think we're about to go into an explosion of just joy and brightness, and the huge relief the world is feeling, I hope will be manifest itself on one's lips, cheeks, eyes, hair, everything. Colour's what we need.
Definitely.
Love that. Wiz, do you want to
I'm
finish?
not, I'm not sure how you follow on from joy and excitement and colour and fantasticness, but yeah, I'm with you there. But I think it's all about a hybrid of digital and human touch. I think it's great we fast track digital, but actually people will be overwhelmed with digital. If they go into a store, they just want to talk to a person, and actually that person, that sales associate, can use tech in the background to kind of help and provide that service. But yeah, it's all about a hybrid and making them work together and putting the customer first.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, all of you. It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed this discussion. So thank you, Helen, Sam, Stacia, Winnie, and Wiz. It's been a pleasure having you join us, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers have learned a lot today.